Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Sophia. So, Radio Sophia is a platform run by a group of IIM Calcutta PhD students to discuss a wide range of issues from management to socio-economic and political issues. And we also discuss movies, books, etc. And today, one such interesting discussion is on the topic household division of labor and the great Indian kitchen. So, this discussion today is inspired by a Malayalam movie, The Great Indian Kitchen, released in 2021. So, this is a movie written and directed by Geo Baby, and it tells the story of a newlywed woman played by Nimisha Sajan, who struggles to be the submissive wife that her husband Suraj Venjramut and his family expect her to be. So, though we will not be only focusing on the movie itself, we'll try to uncover and discuss some of the key aspects that this movie tries to highlight. And I thought it would be an interesting idea to kickstart this discussion with some questions that I found in Class 3 NCERT Social Science textbook. So it's a very interesting, there's an interesting chapter called The Work We Do in Class 3 textbook. And there are two questions which goes like this. Which of your family members do household work? What work do they do? And which of your family members work to earn money? Which of your family members do work but do not get money for it? So I thought this sort of motivates our entire discussion because we're trying to understand a family and a household and how the work is divided within the household. So if any of the audience are interested to kickstart by sharing their views or how it happens in their own household or the households that they see around them, you can unmute your microphone or you can raise your hand. Anybody? For instance, I can begin with what happens in my household generally. So usually my father is employed in a central government office, so he goes and earns money. My mother is also a lawyer, independent lawyer, but she does most of the household work. But we also have a maid, so who does a lot of work like cleaning the house, etc. But the cooking and small chores that are generally not visible are done by my mother. And as kids, it's very rare that we help, and particularly in the quarantine, in the COVID time, in the lockdown, we have seen that most of the because maids are also not available, it's almost entirely done by my mother. So that's what happens in my household and almost all the households of my friends and family that I have seen. If it's any different in any of your households, can you throw some light on?
Yeah, hi, I am Anushka. So I want to tell that what you just told is a typical urban household, like where a maid comes and helps the woman in the house in household chores and other household works. But in a village kind of setting, it's all like the women of the household will do, like my mother used to do. And one interesting thing I want to mention here is that, like, after watching or when I was watching the movie, like, initially I was feeling like, it's so, I mean, very normal. Like, this is there. We all can relate from the movie that this all happens to our house, and what unusual this movie is showing. But when it was repeating the same thing, in the initial part, chopping the vegetables and cleaning the house, and in the morning they are making dosa every time. Like, it has this scene has been repeated so many times, and then what I realize is that I want to forward this, like, the movie, because I cannot see it again and again and again. And then this realization came ki how our mothers used to do the same, monotonous work every day. Like, every day, every time, like, they have to do the same work. And we about me only, like I cannot see this now in the movie, and how like contrasting this is. So what I was saying ki, like in the village setting, women, it is women only, she will do the household work, she will
Anushka?
a urban household.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, this whole monotony, I think that's the movie hits the nail on it. Any other male
yeah.
participants would like to share their observations or how they view the household work in their homes? Anybody? All right. I think before we get more people. So, this is
Uh,
actually, yeah, sorry, Paris.
Hi, Kranti. Yeah,
Yes, Paris. Please go ahead.
Paras here. I haven't seen the movie, but I joined the discussion because it is a topic which is a central part of my research, which is on reproductive, social reproduction. So there is this entire economic theory, not just economic, it's actually emerging from the feminist political economic critique, which is social reproduction theory, which is a central part of my thesis. So, uh, um, talking about not talking about the theory, but talking about my experience, there has been definitely a gendered division of labor at my home, in the sense that my mother and my father, both of them, are equally qualified. It's an urban setting. It's an upper middle class background that I come from. Both of my parents are highly educated. Yet, when it comes to household division of labor, it is definitely gendered. It has been gendered for past 25 to 30 years. After my birth, my mother left her work primarily to take care of me, and after that, she has been taking care of the home while my father has been managing the business. Now, we I have had this conversation with my mother. My sister also has had this conversation with my mother, and she said that it was her decision primarily to invest a lot more time in her kids, to invest her time, her energy in their education, to do all the household work. So for her, it has been, in some sense, a very autonomous decision, and I would not want to take away that agency from her. Nevertheless, I also recognize in the conversation, and I think she also recognizes the fact that she had to take up a bulk of responsibilities of household chores, of raising kids. It's not just the codes, such that, for example, cutting vegetables or washing clothes, etc. The chores would also include, for example, a lot of emotional labor that comes with it, right? Raising kids, for example, requires not just physical labor, but it also requires a lot of emotional investment. The child is sick, for example, tending to the sick, or someone in the family is not well, tending to them, giving them medicines, for instance, giving them care. Now, all of that work is a part of broad, share of work which she does, and most of it is unpaid. Something that has been stinging me, particularly because I know that she was a very brilliant, highly educated woman. For past 10 years or so now, she has been very active in the field of social work. She has been working, she has won several awards also in the field of social work, because she's been working tirelessly in the field of environment. Nevertheless, the gender division of labor is in some sense there even today. It has been, so she says it was her choice, but I recognize that choice is not just an individual decision. It is shaped by several social, political factors, and in that sense, it has been a pattern choice. Now, I can contrast this situation somewhat with my situation because I have been recently married for past 1 year or so, and before uh, marriage, my wife made it very clear to me that the division of labor that would be happening would be equal in all parts. So again, she is also a highly educated, brilliant woman, and I agreed to it, of course. Nevertheless, it's going to be a bit of a challenge for me because uh, being raised as I was, I have not, uh, for example, been taught to cook as well, right? I know some basic stuff, but I have not been taught to cook as well. So now I have to learn it, and I am learning it. So in that sense, I can, contrast that there has been some intergenerational change of sorts. And I'm saying this because me and my wife were in a relationship for 9 years before we got married. So even after being in a relationship for 9 years, the condition was put that I'll marry you only if there is going to be an equal division of labor. We had talked this through. Nevertheless, I do think there is some change which is happening when it comes to division of responsibilities. Although I would still say that there is still largely a gendered pattern to it, and much more broadly, it has not been paid. It's work that is devalued. So although, as I said, I have not seen the movie, it is a very central part of my research, and it's particularly about women and men, both of them who are doing these kinds of work with relation to changes in the environment, with relation to climate change. That is the part of my research, and hence this is what got me interested in the topic. Uh, so thought I would share those two, anecdotal evidence from life of my mother and my wife, and how there has been perhaps a small shift. Nevertheless, I think there is a lot more which still needs to be done, especially with regards to how the work is devalued. Because am I talking too much, or
No,
others
I
want
think
to?
you can continue. You can continue and
Yeah.
complete some this. Yeah.
So I think it's a much broader point which requires discussion, which requires some participation from all genders, particularly the men. A central point which I would not want to focus too much on right now, but I just want to open up is about the devaluation of that work. And I say this because the jobs that are done by primarily by women, even when they go into the sphere of economy, even when they shift from the sphere of the household to the sphere of the market, as economists like to call, there is still going to be a devaluation of it. The reasons could be complex. Nevertheless, it's also true that jobs such as teachers or jobs of healthcare workers are underpaid. So there is definitely, a, an under a devaluation and under payment of those sorts of work, which perhaps needs to be talked about. For example, household work, right? If my mother won't do it, then as you said, a maid would do it. But a maid is someone's mother, right? So at our home, even during quarantine, things changed. During lockdown, my father, me, even my sister, all of us started taking responsibilities and contributing in whatever way we could. There was a lot of change in the way the division of labor was organized in home. Nevertheless, now that the rules have been lifted, what has happened? We have slowly transitioned back to earlier patterns of life, and the work that my mother used to do now largely has again shifted to the maid who comes to our home. So the maid is also someone's wife, someone's mother. So who does the work of care or the household work at my maid's home, right? And she does not get paid a lot by the standards that you have in Mumbai because it's not organized in any way. So, yeah, some larger questions to think about. Although, as I said, I have not seen the movie, but I do think if discussions can be opened up, we could perhaps move into some areas of fruitful discussion.
Right. Thanks, Varas. I think the two anecdotes that you have given very clearly indicate some shift that is happening. But again, we also understand this has a lot of connotation to do with the class and the caste and urban rural dimensions, like even Anushka was mentioning. So how things are changing, certainly there is change, but where it is changing and how it is changing is one point. And the second aspect, like you rightly mentioned, and in fact the movie also touches upon, is the commodification of work. So basically, I think when we begin to talk about commodification of household work or commodification of work per se, then the question of employment, career, and identity of both men and women comes up. And in fact, this movie touches upon that aspect where the lead actress, she wants to apply for a job where it is shown that her mother-in-law supports her, but she urges her to keep it a secret. Tells, please do not tell your husband or my husband that I am encouraging you, but please go ahead and apply, because I, though qualified, I gave up all my job and I had to take care of my children. I don't want that to happen with you. But the husband, and though the husband looks like he's supporting, the moment his father, that is the girl's father-in-law, stops, he also stops her in return. And that's where the entire frustration grows up. And probably I think some of us in the audience have not watched the movie. And for the benefit of that, and before we proceed to the discussion, I would like to maybe play a trailer of the movie so that we get some idea of it. So yeah, that's the movie in brief and the beautiful song from the movie. So this is actually showing us from the beginning to the end how series in the movie are unfolding. So does anybody like to add to any of the discussion that's going on and share any of the experiences about the movie or about the broader topic that we're talking?
In the movie, in the trailer, is this it seems like an upper caste household.
It
Is
is.
that true? Okay.
It is. It
Uh,
is.
because as you rightly pointed out, the dimensions of caste and class need to be considered here, and uh, so in my readings, it has become very clear that the gender division of labor that exists is very specific to caste, right? So in lower caste women, and I don't want to generalize again, but at least I've been reading a lot about the work that women from tribal communities do, and they are not restricted to the household in some sense, at least, because they would venture out of the household to do all sorts of work. Even a lot of livelihood or earning would be done by those kinds of women. So a very interesting take, but again, a slightly cautious way of generalizing it, because this seems like a very upper caste, and in some sense, at least, a well-to-do household, because they have washing machine, they have laptops, they have all the amenities. So I would watch the movie, very interesting one. But I would
Yeah.
just like to ask the audience if they also saw the dimension of caste and class playing out in the movie. People who have actually watched the movie.
Right. In fact, religion, the role of religion is also highlighted in this movie. If anybody would like to pitch in. Yes,
Yeah,
Saurabh.
so just to extend on Paras's argument, so what has happened is I was reading the commentary on the movie. One of the person who understands Malayalam properly, so he said that so there is one scene in the movie where she is menstruating, and that's why she is not the main girl is not allowed to do the household chores. So they bring in a maid, and then maid later tells her that even I during my menstruation I do not reveal to others, because if I do that I will have to be away from work for 4 days and I can't sustain with that. So and then they laugh at and make joke out of it. It is revealed that the maid is a Dalit girl, and I don't know, I mean in movie we don't come to know, maybe because we are not from the culture, but people who are from the same community, they could identify it. They didn't comment much on that, but probably a parallel reading could be done, that how she's become rebellious for the sake of earning livelihood, and then in turn unknowingly or knowingly breaking the barriers given to her by tradition. So that is one point I wanted to just bring in. And second, a different point is I was quite impressed by the fact that they bring in so like Anushka was mentioning, the initial montage of the day-to-day activities and how monotonous becomes. Generally what happens in any movie making, montage is given to make you aware that this is just time killing job. In just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the director finishes it and then reveals that how that monotony creates a latter story. Most of the time it leads to depression or some kind of totally other totally opposite type of activity, and then that makes an impact. So here I was wondering what happens. So if you see the mother-in-law, she is totally like robot. She is doing work. She is not even expressing her emotions, while this girl is first time facing it. So she goes through it on and on and on, and then she starts feeling suffocated. And this montage actually shows the violence she is experiencing in the kitchen. So the kitchen, the kitchen and dining room becomes the site of violence, and the camera is totally from the top. We don't see her, we just see the utensils and the cooking and the waste being thrown out, and that becomes the, so in turn we can experience the violence. So I like the way they showed it. But the fact that the dining room and kitchen are the sites of violence was a thing which I never saw on the screen or in the readings. So that's one point from my side.
I think, Saurav, that's an excellent point that you brought out, where, and in fact, that movie is, I think, suggesting us kitchen and the dining room as a site of violence. And that actually brings me to the question or the idea where in the ads or in the popular movies, we see glorification of work by women themselves, or you know how advertisements try to show that women are very happily or very gladly doing the work, trying to balance, and they feel a sense of achievement when they could actually balance the work everywhere, etc. So I think that's one interesting take. If anybody would like to add upon that particular aspect, that would be great. Anyone? Okay, if I'm allowed, I can actually share another short video which is there in YouTube.
I want to add some. I was saying
Yes,
ki,
Anushka.
so as in the movie initially, it was shown when her mother-in-law was at home. So like she was doing all the household work, and the main actress, she is also helping her in all those work. But when she left, now everything has to be done by the girl. So this is my observation from my surroundings at my home and other relatives. So what is being expected is that, like, suppose like there is mother-in-law and there is daughter-in-law, and she has just come after after being married, and then what is like you would observe two types of things here. So one kind of family would be like very understanding. So she has just come and she won't know everything, like suppose the tradition of the house, and let's not burden her with all the things, all the household works on her. But the second type would be like they will expect the girl to be exactly same like her mother-in-law, that her mother-in-law, like being alone, the only woman in the household, she was doing every household work very perfectly and she was doing all her alone. Now because her daughter-in-law has come, and now she should replace her mother-in-law in all the household work, and she should do everything very much exactly as her mother-in-law used to do, and very much perfectly. So this is my observation, and I think in the movie also the father-in-law is expecting the same, that because my wife used to give me a toothbrush and
Anushka? Anushka? Sorry, you're not audible. So I think, yeah, what Anushka has been trying to tell is basically how everything is expected to be done in, of course, a traditional manner by the wife in exactly the same way how the mother-in-law was doing. So I think on this note, now that we're talking about the work or how women perceive the work, so in one way the work is perceived as glorified work. On the other hand, it's also looked upon as a site of violence. And there's a short video that explains this. So that's let me just share it. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yes.
Yeah, so that video sorts of actually talks about the points that Paris was raising, Anushka was raising, and even Saurabh was raising. So on this, so it's about the value of work. How do you even value the work? How are we diminishing the value of work? Or whether how women perceive. So somehow strangely, since the day one of marriage, I don't know who tells a woman or how it is understood by the woman and everybody around them that she wakes up. And even in movies or songs, we see it's as a fantasy. Even before the man wakes up, the day after the wedding, the woman is already up, has taken a shower, doing probably puja, walking around the tulsi plant, and then comes up with a cup of coffee. It's so much of romanticization of household work. So on this note, I'd leave to the audience. Anybody else wants to add any other interesting points?
Just one point, Paras here.
Yes.
So although this video by Swaddle was quite interesting, I think they could have, or perhaps I'm not very sure. There are a couple of economics students of economics here. So Kranti and Himadri, how would you connect the gender division of labor to the larger systems existing in society? For example, capitalism, right? Because this household work in some sense is unpaid. So if um, man was if women were to be paid for all the work that was done, in some sense it would require changes at macroeconomic policy levels, right? So, for example, in states such as Switzerland, or also or in Sweden, for example, or in some of those Eastern European nations, where the government subsidizes education, where the government pays, for example, for children's education, it pays for a lot of other things which are provided free of cost. So obviously, taxation levels are high, but what it does is it takes away a lot of work from the realm of household to the realm of government, right? Which so to make shifts at how the work is divided within the families, there also needs to be shifts at macroeconomic policy levels, and hence household division of labor seen in isolation tells us little if we don't connect it to other larger systems existing in society like patriarchy or capitalism. Because you, Himadri, are students of economics, any take on that particular issue?
Sure. Himadri, would you like to add or respond to Paras's comment? Okay, before Himadri gets ready, so Paras, okay, Anu is here. Anu, please go ahead.
Hi. I mean, can I make a comment on a previous point and come back to this first?
Yes.
I mean,
please.
okay. So this is also something which Paras had mentioned earlier. So this is and Saurabh, both of them actually. This is regarding the caste aspect. So with regard to the movie itself, since we are talking about the movie, let me first go back to it. So in the movie, yes, it is true that it's a Dalit woman who's coming as a servant to the household and helping her out when she has menstruation and all that. It is true. I mean, that is understood because I'm a Malayali and I understand the caste dimension there. But I disagree with a point which Paras had made, saying that, okay, being a lower caste woman, does that give her more agency to go out of the household and work? Or could you read it as, double or triple burden of work? I mean, you have different aspects of your identity, your being a woman, being of a lower caste, different things coming into play. So you could be burdened with different aspects of these things. So and also the fact that a woman has to go out and work. It's also I would say it's more of a survival than celebration of her agency at that point. So I think we need to make a clear distinction between what could be considered as her own agency, or is it like a mere survival survival technique. So something to ponder about. Another thing that I would like to add is about initially the discussion was also about how we could see the general patterns. Also the video that you had played also kind of portrayed a little bit of it. So I'm just bringing it up. I'm sure everybody knows about it. The Time Use Survey of 2019, which the Indian government had done, and the reports had come out last year. It also mentions something which has been observed in the larger society. So, women spends about 4 hours, 59 minutes a day on unpaid paid services and work. So, and on the contrast, the men's figures were much lower. So this is true. I mean, we have established that, but then if you want some statistics, coming from an economics point of view, I was just trying to answer that. Also, men's statistic, it's much lower. I can't remember the thing, but I think it's about 1 hour, 37 minutes or something, if that is the thing. So this goes with the larger, hello, am I audible? Hey, hello?
Yes, please go ahead. You're audible. Yeah.
So yeah, this goes with the larger trend as well, not just in India, but outside as well. So this comes to another discussion that we had in the beginning, like, are we experiencing a shift, like, intergenerationally, are we experiencing a shift? So something which was brought up earlier. So I'm not really sure. Also, it depends on your work participation levels at the macro. If you take the macro figures, I don't find a very promising figure. It could be. I'm not saying that this is only because of contribution to household labor or anything, but I'm just saying something to ponder about. And so regarding the connection between household work and gender division of labor and larger economic systems. So I think we should actually mention about how it is being treated in mainstream economics. Something which household is a subject which has not been discussed in mainstream economics. It is since Becker, but what is being told over there is that women do a lot of household work because it's actually based on comparative advantage. So that is the household economics which starts off, and of course it has moved on to other things, but then it starts off that way. But as economists, we actually kind of stick to neat models and something so far away from reality. So it starts off there, and but then the larger question that the economists kind of evade from is what really contributes to gender division of labor. So I think the whole discussion regarding the power relations within the household and how different factors contribute to it, I think it would be nice if the discussion goes into it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anu. Could you please introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I'm a researcher working in economics department in University of Hyderabad. So my topic is also somewhere related to gender and social reproduction theory. So that is why I kind of I started the discussion with all these things. I've been reading about it, but I thought I would introduce some of these topics in the discussion here. I also did a time use survey, so with regard to the women laborers in tea estates in Munnar. So when the Indian government came out with the report, I was actually fascinated by the results. I mean, it was also something, there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anu. Himadri or anybody else would like to add? So meanwhile, Anu was just touching upon... Yeah, Himadri, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just missed the theme
Anu
of
also
the
raised
last
and
discussion.
this ongoing discussion is how do we connect the household division of labor to the larger macroeconomic... How do we connect, or how do we see the household division of labor in connection with the macro system, macro changes that are happening broadly? So,
You mean to say
patriarchy, capitalism, so all these broader forces, how do you think, or how do economists generally see these are shaping the household division of labor?
See, when we kind of study the first chapter in macroeconomics, we study what is called the national income accounting. So that's how GDP is computed and etc. All those stuff. Now, one of the disadvantages that's often mentioned in most books in the case of GDP accounting is the fact that the housewife's income is generally not accounted for while computing the GDP, and that's why we call it often as imputed income of the housewife, or similar kind of activities which are not accounted for. So I would actually like to bring to, I don't know whether that was discussed, there has been a recent Supreme Court judgment on these lines, which is, I think, few months back or something. I don't remember the exact date, wherein the Supreme Court actually recognized that the value of, say, a lady who's a homemaker's work is actually very similar to what the husband does at his or her place of work. And so the story went like that. I think there was some kind of an insurance claim kind of an issue, and which needed the housewife, or which needed the claimant to actually have certain amount of income at his or her side. But that person was not having any income, because all the income he or she was deriving it from was from, all of the income was being derived by the husband, and the wife was doing household chores, and effectively she was not party to that claim of the insurance. But if I can recollect, the Supreme Court judgment actually read, Supreme Court actually went on to compensate the wife or the lady, even though she was not earning income, to some of an amount close to around, I think, 15 lakhs or something. So you can say an yearly income of the lady was assumed to be around 14 or 15 lakhs for the household work she had done. So that's a kind of an economic connect that was recently established in one of the Supreme Court cases. And just to add on that, I think before I had come for this session, I was looking at some data. So there's this survey called this time use survey.
Yeah, where, Anu was just mentioning about it.
Okay. Yeah. So that survey has a very interesting finding, wherein it stated that women spend nearly 299 minutes a day on unpaid domestic services, vis-a-vis 97 minutes by men. So that's pretty well recognized. And even now coming to the 2011 census, it was mentioned that around 160 million women have mentioned household work as one of their main occupation, compared to 5.8 million men who have declared. So 159 million versus 5.8 million, mentioning household work as their main occupation. So the distinction is very well encapsulated in the various statistical reports that are coming to the forefront. And I think with I mean, even while the national income accounting gets more and more I mean, more and more comprehensive, it would take into account the fact that I mean, it might actually go on to inflate the amount of GDP if you are actually taking into account the work that women are putting into uh, their kitchens.
Right. Thanks, Himadri.
Uh,
Yeah, just to sort of put this in or summarize this aspect of the link between the household and the micro. In fact, Lenin says women are doubly oppressed under capitalism. So, to quote, just cite one of my aunt, she did her undergraduation in 1990s, but though her husband expected her to work, she said, I don't want to go to work because I don't want to do both work, like both household work as well as the a work outside house, and to earn. So this is one aspect. And nowadays what we see, like even Paris was telling, the intergenerational shift, though his mother made a certain choice, his wife made it evident that I do not want to be the only person who does the household work, and because she clearly understands. So I think one aspect of it is that actually under capitalism, where it's becoming more and more important for the women to go and work, because you everything is commodified around you. You need to be able to buy all the commodities, probably, which was earlier self-made in the household. So now you need to sort of, both parties should earn to purchase any of the goods. Also, for there is another concept of the identity. So it not just to even for the society to recognize woman as a thinking being, it took a lot of time. And now to recognize woman as an equal intellectually and physically in all terms, to recognize that and to allow the woman to have a career of herself itself is a big thing. So I think as capitalism progresses and as more and more women enter into the workforce, we are going to see these sort of changes. And just to add one more point, there's a very interesting series in Amazon Prime called Tokyo Girl, where it shows Japanese women more and more are unwilling to get married. They're very much happy to just stay single and be working, because no matter how much advanced the society is becoming, the traditional expectations around what a woman should do inside the household within a marriage is not very much changing. So, so they are all preferring, most of them are preferring not to marry. And that's another problem in itself. Yeah. So with this, I we have it's 6:55. Probably we can go for 10 to 15 minutes more. So if somebody has any other interesting points to add, please do. Then we can go ahead and talk about the climax of the movie, which I think is very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a very small point to make. So, continuing on what you said, Kranti, this institution of marriage being challenged or being questioned here. So, if you see, there is a small sub story in that where one activist talks about Shabrimala issue, and then she gets attacked by the goons. If you see, and probably I'm doing too much of parallel reading here, but what we see that when goons attack on her house, she's alone with her kid. So we don't know where is her husband. I mean, are they staying together? He's out or not? Looks like, and at the end of the story, what happens in the movie as well? It is always in the binary. So if you see, either you choose the family or you choose your social issues. You fight for the freedom or you stay in the family. So it's always either or situation. You can't be in the family and be free. Hello.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
I think, yeah, that's a wonderful observation. Yeah, Paris, you wanted to add something, right?
yeah, just one point. Response to 2 points. One point that Himadri raised about inflation of GDP. Uh, so I am not very sure how inflation of GDP will actually help women and even men who are doing a lot of the work that goes on in the realm of social reproduction. So that's one. So, for example, and why I do mention men here also is because when we talk of household work, right, the household work is not just, as I said, to me at least, it's not just restricted to, cutting vegetables, washing clothes. For example, it's also about disposal of waste, right? It's about collecting waste of the household, disposing. One small part of it. Now that disposal of waste is once it goes out of the household, a lot of that work, taking the waste, disposing it, involves both men as well as women, primarily from lower castes of society. So, to me, in some sense, the questions of caste, of class, and of gender are entangled. And when we talk of division of work, and more broadly about the kind of works that are undervalued, I'm not very sure how recognizing those works in mainstream economic calculations would actually benefit people who are doing these works on the ground and are getting not paid at all, or are getting paid very, very low.
Yeah,
Having the, yeah, so that's one. Himatri, you can perhaps respond to that, because it
yeah,
always the mainstream economic
yeah,
solution always include them in the economic calculation, and the GDP would expand, and this is the value of a woman's work, and all of that is good. But how does that actually help people who are actually doing the work on the ground? That's one question. You can respond to that. Uh, Second, brief observation with what Anu said. I think I largely agree with whatever she said. It definitely is a triple burden. My point was largely about not generalizing the experience that is portrayed on in the movie from the trailer. Again, I have not seen the movie, so I may be very wrong. But I just wanted to caution everyone, that whatever we saw in the movie and the division of labor that was portrayed in the movie may not be generalizable to women from other castes or other classes. So that was one simple observation. Primarily because my research deals with women who belong to tribal communities, and at least my initial observations tell me that the division of labor differs a lot as we move, from one class to other class, from one caste to other caste. So, but largely I do agree with Anu's point about the triple burden being on women. So those are my 2 points.
Right.
And there's one larger point to both Kranti and Himatri as well. Does this does this help, quantification of a woman's work and saying that she needs to be paid, or her work was valued at 11 lakhs, or include that in the GDP calculation, and the GDP will be inflated? How does that really help? How does that work out?
Yeah, Himatri, if you can respond quickly for that.
yeah. So see, if you include it into the GDP, that will not obviously directly, I mean, affect the mindset of the people in the society. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a more micro level issue. Now, the fact is that, for example, I mean, if you would have heard, there's a concept called gender budgeting, which is in place in India. So what it does is that
Right.
there are certain schemes which are, I mean, there's a certain proportion of the budget which is kind of sidelined for women. And do you think that that has really improved the outcomes in I mean, as far as the gender issues are concerned? Maybe or maybe not. The fact
Hmm.
is, when the government takes that into perspective during policy formulation or budget making, then it kind of recognizes to the larger audience that they're
Hmm.
giving a certain amount of respect to the women. So it's more optics than maybe things that are working on the ground. That is more of a micro level issue. What you and I do at our home, or what we kind of, I mean, how we kind of, I mean, preach our next generation and our friends and our colleagues. I mean, the
Hmm.
way we deal with these issues, I think, I mean, that's got more to do than what the government has to. I mean, probably I think it will be too harsh from the government to kind of fix this issue than we
No,
doing
no.
it at our home.
I'll give one example. Okay, Kranti, is
Yeah.
it okay? Just one concluding example.
Paris, I think, okay, yeah, quickly maybe, yeah.
Okay. No, so for example, government policies on enclosing the forest, right? On deforestation, on giving away that land which belong to, for example, tribal women, to private companies. For example, this has happened in Maharashtra, Palghar. Uh, Now, owing to government policies, women, for example, have to walk much more to fetch water, or men, for example, who primarily collect wood for building houses, for building furniture, have to walk much more. So, in some sense, I do see a very clear connection between the policies of the government at macro level and the lives of people, which people live, the work that they do in their everyday lives. So I do see, in some sense, a very close connection between them. Uh, I don't know. So that's just my take. Maybe open to a further discussion. But I think we don't have enough time.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Anu has a point. Yeah, Anu can respond to this.
So this is in response to the question which Paras had raised earlier. I mean, should we? I mean, while recognizing, inclusion of women's work as part of the macro, does it really help and does it make a difference? So I think we should actually. There is actually a predecessor for this kind of a discussion before the 70s. Wages for housework kind of a debate which happened in the 70s. So this similar kind of argument, to quickly put it in a nutshell, it's basically something which, kind of paying wages or subsidies for the kind of housework that women are still doing. I mean, that's the kind of argument which came up in the 70s. But there were a lot of criticism against that kind of a thing, because it also perpetuates the gender stereotypes further. Like, women are supposed to do a kind of work, and so you're paid for it. It legitimizes the kind of the stereotypical behavior in the household. So that was one of the major criticisms. So I do understand the need for bringing an awareness, but should we do it like a little more carefully about it, like a more I think the change should start more socially than than a very economic kind of a policy. To quickly go back to the movie once more, this is regarding to the attitude that as a society we have. So in the movie, there is a scene where you can see the men in the household working in the kitchen, and it's a one-off kind of a thing. And the women are supposed to feel grateful that the men are working. So it's a cultural thing there. So if you kind of make sure that you are paying the wages for the household or something, I'm not sure whether that kind of a cultural thing goes away. I'm not sure whether that's the kind of approach that we should have. Probably a more sensible way is to start at the start with the kids, children. How they should be raised, and boys not supposed to work. That kind of a thing. It should probably start very culturally and socially. As armchair economists, we can just say all these things, but then to add the groundwork, I don't know how things are. But slowly, I think things are changing. But yeah, it's a very slow movement. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Anu. Actually, even I feel that one point is the awareness within women that, okay, it's not my duty to do the entire household work. It's not like, one cannot expect only the woman to do it. So the awareness should come from within. And also the second part, or the other half of that, is also awareness among men, that it's not, this whole household work is not just women's work. But when you're raised in such a way that women, your sister or mother or anybody in the house, is giving everything to you, suddenly when you're married, you expect the wife to do, because for you to do the work means you have to give up the privilege. So, that is also a very interesting point. And actually that brings me back to Saurabh's point, where he was highlighting about the choice, and that's also very much connected to the climax. So when a woman is burdened with the household work and she's not even allowed to do whatever she would like to do outside household, what choices does she have? Should she succumb to the household expectations and continue like maybe her mother-in-law did, Or is it okay for her to break free from marriage, and is it the only choice that we have? Or under what circumstances do our choices expand? If people would like to pitch in on this point. Anyone?
Could you repeat your question once more? I mean, there were some network issues.
I'm sorry. So I just said, usually is it a choice? Do women have a choice to do the household work or not do the household work? Like the climax in the movie shows, the woman breaks free from the marriage and she walks away. She walks out and she takes up her own job, and she's probably leading a single life. Like Saura was mentioning that point. So what choices do women really have? So comments around that. Yeah. Was I audible? Sorry.
Yeah, you were audible. I'm waiting for the women to answer it first.
Okay. Anybody, doesn't matter really, women or men. What do you guys think? Yeah, Anu, please go ahead.
Hey, Kranti. Hi. So, to walk out from the marriage in that movie, that also comes at a privilege, I think. I mean, it's a privilege also, I think. Sometimes the cost of walking out of the marriage is so high that women choose not to exit. I mean, that's what I think. I mean, it depends on the context, the societal cost involved, and all that. I mean, I'm talking about the exit strategy. But so the choice actually comes in because of all these social I mean, you cannot talk about choice unless you talk about the context. And I mean, the context always varies from different I mean, it varies. I mean, caste wise, region wise, religion wise, everything, it changes. So the cost actually depends on that, I think.
Right. Anybody else? Yeah, Anushka.
Yeah, add to Anu's point. So as she said, it's not like every girl can walk out of her marriage, because there are many things that goes around. So I personally know 2-3 incidents where, like, as in the movie also, when she comes back to her mother's house, her mother says that go back to that house, like we cannot accept you. So this is like, I know 2-3 incidents where I have seen that the girl who was married 2-3 months before, and because her husband doesn't like her, and there were other reasons also, but she was not acceptable to her husband, to her in-laws, and not to her own family, her parents. So what option does the girl like her has? So again, like as she mentioned, that it's not that every girl can choose to go out of her marriage. So there is no really a choice. She has to, I don't know. I mean, there is no answer for that, what she can do and where she should go.
Yeah, I would like to hear from some Devolina. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, so I joined pretty late, and I also have not watched the movie. So I just wanted to get clarification on one point regarding this word choice. So when you're talking about choice, so are you talking about choice in terms of whether the person should be in the marriage or should move out of the marriage, or choice in terms of like while in the marriage, whether the women have the choice of doing the like I know some people who say that I have chosen to be a housewife over my career. So I got confused in that term choice. So if you can clarify, then I would like to comment on it.
Yeah, I think in a way it's about all these things. So once you enter into marriage, what choices do we have in terms of doing the household work or working or not working? And when you are expected to do certain roles, whether you want to do, and if your husband or your in-laws are not accepting the fact that you do not want to do the household works, then what choices do we have? So it's really about a choice of a woman, choices of women in the marriage.
Yeah, so in that case, like Anu and Anushka, both of them have pointed out, I would also agree with them. So I think it's also depends upon like which class and caste and region you belong to. And I don't know, like if you are in marriage and you are deciding that you are not going to do the household work, in that case you have to be like financially independent so that you can hire somebody. So I have not seen many marriages where things are like equally shared. There are like one or two instances where I have seen. So in that case, whether it's a choice or it's like a given, so sometimes I think we don't like us women also don't even recognize that like we're doing it. It's like given to us. It's so like from the childhood, it is so much inside us, so inside our head. So we think it's like a given set. So we don't I don't think we always think in those terms. So now these days there are a lot of changes exactly happening, but I mean that is also, I mean, very small and a slow progress. But I think like if you are talking about a larger section of the society, larger section of women, I think most of us, even the educated population, also think it's like a women's job to take care of household thing, even if they do recognize sometimes, and they also say that men are not brought up in this way, so it is very difficult for them. So that is regarding the household task. And if you are in the household, I think it's kind of given. And even if you do recognize the fact, then you have to, there's a lot of struggle. Like as a woman, I can say there's a lot of struggle. If you do recognize the problem, then also you have to go through a lot of struggle. And that is point number A. And regarding like walking out of marriage, I think, choice is there. There are, I mean, people are making this kind of choice these days, but again, I think it depends. Like if you are financially independent, if you're ready to take the battle with the society, because once you're divorced, like if you're not married in this country, then you have to face a lot of questions. Now I'm sure if you are getting divorced, then also you have to face a lot of questions, and you have to really take up like with the society. So I think people sometimes also thinks in that way that, oh my God, I don't want to think in those terms. Let me, like, I know a couple of cases where they have just they're just staying in their marriage because it would be very costly in those terms, even if they're financially independent. So I don't know, and still the choice, it is maybe concentrated in a very small section of the society. But yeah, we can hope for the better future, I think.
Right.
Yeah, that would be my comment.
Thanks, Dabalina. Actually, now I would like to ask any of the men in the discussion that what do you think is the pulse of the men around you in general? When you discuss, are men willing to accept this household chores? Are men willing to accept to divide their household work equally, or wanting to marry women who are working? Because I see in some of the management schools, there are many people who say, we ourselves have a busy life, so we prefer to marry a woman who is not working, so she can be there at home and take care of me and my children, etc., etc., etc. So how is the pulse of men generally around? Anybody? If men can answer, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, even if women in the group have an idea of what men generally think about this question, I think that would be a great way to end the discussion. Yes, Abhinav, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this chance. And I think men around here are not that willing. And even in advanced countries like Japan and South Korea, women are still working. And it all depends upon the bargaining power. And one advantage in India is that we have and this household maid and all those things, so that can become organized, and men and women both will have less work at home to do. But I don't think in the near future we are going to have men as willing as it is in some Scandinavian countries or anywhere else.
Right. Thanks. Abhinav, can you introduce yourself quickly?
I'm FPM student of economics in IIM Indore.
Thanks, Abhinav. Yeah. Debolina, if you can also introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, this is Debolina. I'm teaching economics in Gurudas College in Kolkata. And yeah, I know Pranti because we were in HCU together
Right.
While I was doing my MPhil and PhD.
Yeah. Thanks, Debolina. Thanks, Sujit. Yeah. Anybody else would like to add to what Abhinav has commented? Paras, Saurabh, or Himadri? Yeah, Debolina, if you have a point, please go ahead and add.
Yeah, so I don't think that men are very willing to do the work. And I think most of the men, they don't realize what we are discussing. They may not even recognize. So, I mean, men who recognize, either they have had a very like equal household, or they have gone through a kind of education where this kind of issues were discussed. Otherwise in the like broader society, in the popular parlance, it still is seen as a women's job. So it is not even there in their recognition. So even if there are people who are willing to share the loads of the household, I would say the share would be very small. So only way out is, like Anu was suggesting, if we can really brought up a child from the when they're kid, from that time onwards, and if we can have some course in the from the school level, or I don't know, something needs to be done at a larger scale. Otherwise it is still, it's progressing, I would say. People sometimes I keep hearing about it, but I don't know. You have to tell the men that you have to do this kind of work. They don't think it's their responsibility.
Absolutely. Actually, there's an interesting comic, which I think I'll share the link in the group also, by a French comic artist called Emma, where she says it's not just about helping. Now, the generation, some of them have come to terms with the fact that, okay, my wife is also working, so I should help her. That much has done, but still it's called as a help. If you ask me, I'll definitely help you. So then the Emma shows that it's more about mental load. So constantly at the back of your mind of a woman, she's thinking about coming back and doing the household work or taking care of the child. So that mental load needs to be shared. So it's about the responsibility that needs to be shared. So this is one interesting point that has made, that we need to recognize. Men and women both need to recognize this as an important thing. Yeah. So I think we are almost there. If anybody would like to add 1 or 2 points quickly, then please go ahead. Otherwise, we can end the discussion. Anyone? Yeah, I guess that's about it. So thank you. Okay, Abhinav, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to add about GDP. GDP data is not including women, and all those things. Discussions are not going to be very useful, because suppose once women work is involved, it's not about what is the net output. It's about how it is changing. So we are more interested in how GDP is changing every year, whether we are making any progress or not. So I don't think including this will have much effect on what actually needs to be done is to improve the bargaining power of women, educating men and women, like you have said. And these are all quantitative things. GDP is all statistical thing, which is not very important.
Right. Thanks, Abhinav. Actually, I now invite Saurabh to discuss about an initiative which Radio Sophia is about to launch. It's about the movie discussions occasionally. So, Saurabh, would you like to come on and please introduce the audience about the initiative?
Yeah. Hi. So yeah, we are trying to, so just continuing with what we did today, probably on the similar lines, we can have more movie discussions. And to start with, we are going to have another movie called 500 Days of Summer. And unfortunately, Paras is not here, but he has done quite a nice term paper on this movie itself and provided a nice critique. So we are both thinking that, yeah, 500 Days of Summer. So thanks. So we are planning to talk on this. Probably we'll start with a small kind of introduction between me and Paras, and then we'll open for the discussion with the other people. Date is not finalized. We will circulate also EOI, and then people can join in. That's it.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh. So thank you everyone for joining for this discussion of this great movie, The Great Indian Kitchen. And I think we have exhaustively covered a lot of aspects, and I'm sure this topic itself is huge and it has multiple complexities. So probably we'll be able to take up some of these in future discussions at different points of time. And I think all we can do for now is to keep the discussion going on. So thank you very much for joining Radio Sophia today.